Welcome in to episode 51 of the Dorton and Duckett Debate podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. Obviously, this is not Nick Duckett. This is Bryan Benninger, folks. So, Bryan, how are you doing? We're bringing you on for a Phillies show here. You doing good?
I'm doing great now. We start talking about baseball. I'm getting a little antsy here. Hopefully the weather will start breaking. We talk about baseball more often now.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're probably a little more excited for baseball than I am this year. I've been telling a lot of people, I think this is the least excited I've been for a baseball season just because we traded Arenado, and I'm just like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
we've been there down that road before, trading our best players away. Now we're actually trying to hold on to our players. So I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's baseball. Regardless of how my team plays, I'm always excited when it comes around, and I'm pumped for it. I'm pumped, especially
Yeah,
after only getting 60 games last year too.
yeah, we got a little bit of a tease last year. Now we want the full thing and full-fledged thing. Now grass is green, weather's nice. It's time to play ball.
Absolutely. So if you want to go ahead, give a little bit of a background of yourself, you're a Phillies fan, kind of where that came from and started, and kind of floor is yours here.
Yeah, if I remember me from the Heavy Hitter Network, I had my own show, 4-4 Sports. That's where I made friendship with Lucas here. We talked a lot of sports back in the day, and now we're trying to rekindle that sportsman talk now. And yeah, I'm a longtime Phillies fan. I'm a all Philadelphia fan right now, but Phillies is my true love, my first love. And ever since I was a little kid, my dad take me to the Veterans Stadium. That's how old I am. So and just watching baseball growing up, it was just it was my national pastime. So I bleed the Philly red there. So I ache and have all the cheers in the world when they win and lose. So it's definitely a high hits and valleys of all my Philly seasons.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so I guess briefly, and we'll get into the season last year and recap shortly here. But how did were you a fan of, obviously, with COVID going on, kind of it being at the beginning stages? We didn't really know what to expect. So how did you feel personally about the 60 game schedule, and then how everything was kind of handled as far as baseball last year?
I kind of enjoyed it. Even though I'm an old school baseball fan, I appreciate trying to new and outside the box thinking. So when they
Yeah.
said a 60-game season, I remember watching the NBA when they had their lockouts. They had a 50-game seasons, and it was like the best years because it was like a sprint, not a marathon. To me, I
Right.
thought that we could draw more fans to the baseball game, the ones that are the absent fans that haven't watched in a while. I thought it was a good time to bring old baseball fans back with the new rules, make it a little bit quicker. I know it kind of pisses people off, the purists, but it's not all about the purists. You take a young kid to a baseball game, and it's a little bit trying to keep them their center of attention to the game. So I like some of the rules, like the extra innings, runner on second base, the DH. Oh my God, I've never thought I'd live long enough to see a National League DH. There's so many players the Phillies have traded away over the years because they didn't have the DH. So I was a huge fan of all this concept, and plus we didn't have to watch the dog days this summer, watching the Dodgers clinch the division in July and all the way through the video. So it was more of a race than a marathon. I don't think I liked it every year, but last year was a little bit of special. Get a little bit of a small taste of just of the baseball season.
And that's something I was going to bring up at some point today, but you brought it up now, so may as well just talk about it now. Some of the rules that they did bring up, obviously, with the runner starting at second in extra innings, and then the DH. You seem pretty. Obviously, you were super happy about that. For me, I don't know where I am. I'm on the fence with it because I see both sides. Like, I really like the strategy side of not having the DH, but also you look at it, it's like, well, do you want pretty much an easy out anytime the pitcher comes up? I mean, you have your occasional Noah Syndergaards, the guys that rake Zach Greinke, but
Mhm.
really it's a pretty poor performance at the plate. So maybe just have a guy like DH. So is that something that you have always kind of wanted as the DH, or is that something that's kind of had to grow on you over the years?
Yeah, I heard everybody. Oh, I like the strategy up. And every time I watch a game, it's fourth inning. The pitcher's coming up, bases loaded, 2 outs. Obviously, you're not going to pinch hit for your starting pitcher because you won't get the win.
Right.
And he strikes out, and it's an inning killer. It's such a buzz killer. I mean, it's seen that too often. I understand that the small ball aspect. You want to see a
Right.
strategy, but we have to take our fandom out and put what's best for baseball, the
Yeah.
entertainment value. There's some things like the shift that needs to kind of go away a little bit because it's taking away the offense. The game, offense sells tickets. It has more excitement to the game. I went to many baseball games where I saw Roy Halladay pitch 1-0 shutouts, which is great, but the game was kind of like a little lackluster. I couldn't finish my sixth beer before the game was over. But I watched Ryan Howard win a 9-8 game, so they were a little more exciting. I totally get both sides, like you said, but you definitely got to try to bring more entertainment value to the baseball game. And I think that's what we got to try to get these younger kids into the baseball game. I have a son too. He will
Right.
not watch baseball all the game long. So it's just kind of it's a hard tug of war match between the purists and try to keep the new fans alive into the game.
And that's actually you're reading my mind or something, because that's something I was just about to ask you
Great
now.
minds think alike.
Well, that's right. With your son now, so obviously he's younger. Do you bring him to baseball games? Is that something that like you're trying to like kind of, hey, come on, get a baseball fan, or is he kind of growing his own love for it, or maybe he doesn't care for baseball at all?
He is. When you take him to a ball game, it's everything but the baseball game. You got to take him to the field, do the fast pitch thing, all the kid activities. Watch a little bit of it, but to keep an attention span on the game, you can see it's just not there. Like when I was a kid, I had the scorecard. I'm keeping the box score of everything. I mean, that might be a little old generation to me, but it's definitely a lost art. But if you keep the game moving faster, that's the biggest thing with baseball. We beat it down to death. It's just a slow moving game. And it's hard to keep people's attention span there.
I agree. And then last year we saw some unwritten rules getting broken, obviously, with the Fernando Tatis Jr. situation. Everyone's going to remember that. So what is your take, I guess, kind of seeing both sides of it, with the older school side of where the unwritten rules are like, you follow and abide by these things, and if you don't, you're going to get earholed. Versus now it's like, what, we're kind of starting to break away from that. So what's your opinion on those unwritten rules type stuff that's kind of going on now?
I don't. I'm kind of, like I said with everything else. I'm kind of in the middle because you need to bring some excitement in the game. So some of these more flashier players, I guess they would say, but it's weird how baseball is. If you show excitement or passion in the game, you're considered a bad guy. In other sports, you're praised over. So it's kind of weird. Like Philadelphia Phillies right fielder Bryce Harper he's like the post-war a bad guy because what's he do? He shows excitement when he gets a double. His his hat falls off, the flowing hair and everything, and he's painted. But he just has a lot of passion. It's getting a little ridiculous. If you show up a pitcher, then you deserve what you get. Maybe not the head, but you should put one on the rear end. But there's some fine lines to that on both sides there.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100% and all of that too. Yeah. Yeah.
If that's a walk-off home run, I mean, you got to show excitement. Like, if you sit there and just put your head down and go around the bases, come on.
Right.
You're in the entertainment business. Let's not kid ourselves,
And I think part of that is kind of why many people don't know much about Mike Trout outside of the baseball fans, because Mike Trout is that put your head down, just go down and work. And, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. He has tremendous success. Obviously, he's the best player in baseball and will be a future Hall of Famer, no doubt. But, I do agree. I think to some extent you have to try and find something to get the kids and the younger kids of baseball that are trying to get into it. You show a guy Mike Trout, is like, okay, well, he does all these things great and stuff, and he's a great player to watch. But they're going to look at it and be like, well, is he having fun out there, or is he doing it just to do it? Whereas, Bryce Harper, I mean, he may not be as talented as Mike Trout, but he's more, I guess, you can see the excitement that goes through it. And I'm not trying to bash Mike Trout or anything, obviously.
No,
but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, he makes everything look so easy and graceful. It's just like it looks like he's not even trying out there, but it's like he's the greatest athlete probably in baseball. But yeah,
Yeah,
like he doesn't do any self promotion or nothing like that. So he stays pretty quiet. He's a pretty humble guy. So
right.
on the West Coast bias, it's like you don't really get to see him because nobody can stay up late to watch him and stuff like that. So yeah, he's got a little bit, but everybody knows who he is. But it's just the casual fan. I don't know if they really know who he is.
Right.
That's why the Yankees need to get themselves in the postseason is to
Yeah.
get him into the public eye.
I want Mike Trout to win with the Angels so bad, so bad. But if I'm being honest, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they're probably going to have to trade him if they want Mike Trout to win because the Angels are not looking good, and they haven't for a while.
Yeah, it just seems like they can't find pitching. It just
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, anyways, that was some good talk. But let's get into your team. Talk about the Philadelphia Phillies. So obviously last season only 60 games, like you mentioned before. They went 28-32, which was good for third place in the NL East. And the biggest need was the bullpen, or the biggest issue was the bullpen for them. I believe I was reading something that says it was the second worst bullpen in baseball history, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. So I guess in general, do you want to talk about the Phillies, how they were last season, and kind of touch on some strengths and some of their weaknesses too?
Yeah, they basically did not make the playoffs in a 16 team format because the bullpen just flat. I'm gonna say it just sucked. Like
Yeah.
you said, the second worst bullpen in Major League Baseball history. At one point, I think they were the worst, and they actually I don't know how they improved themselves, but anyway, they're still a laughing stock. It just didn't matter who they tried out there; they couldn't get any outs out there, and it was just a rotating door back there, and it's just amazing because they've actually signed guys, they brought young guys in. It didn't matter what there was no formula that went wrong. Like everybody went wrong. I mean, they fired bullpen coaches, they fired pitching coaches. For some reason the bullpen just was a disaster, and that cost them the playoffs. And they're probably one of the second worst team to have playoff drought now. I think or something like that.
Mm.
So seemed like every year we were going to playoffs, and now we're in like a 10-year drought now. So they've still nickel and dimed it out there this year, but they just added numbers, and hopefully they can strike gold with some of these bullpen arms this year.
Absolutely. So I want to touch on Joe Girardi. Obviously, he's your guys' manager out here. How, I guess, personally for you, do you like Joe Girardi? And then I guess maybe more of the Phillies fans in general, how do they feel about him? Obviously, he hasn't been there for too long, and it's hard to tell. But what have you noticed, and what do you think of him?
Well, I love him because I never thought we'd ever get him because going from Gabe Kapler, who was a rookie manager,
Right.
and everything was scrutinized the way he was managing because he didn't have any credibility. When Joe Girardi steps in there and takes over, he's got a World Series ring. He's won so many games with the Yankees that he brought instant credibility. So you never second guess his thoughts. And so he took the same team and basically had the same results as Gabe Kapler. So it was the bullpen and the failure to the stretch run down to the run last 2 years that they didn't make the playoffs. So yeah, Joe Girardi brings up a cool, calm, collective, and brings integrity and just pretty much credibility. So everybody knows we didn't have a boss before. Now we finally have a boss, and everybody don't have to wonder if there's enough leadership or nothing. But Joe Girardi's knows how to run a good clubhouse. So it was definitely showing for the brief time he was with us last year.
Absolutely. And I think, and now remind me, so after Charlie Manuel, I'm drawing a blank, I can't remember. So who was a manager after him?
Well, I can pull out some wounds here now. The old Ryan Sandberg
That's okay.
he was probably I love though. I thought he was going to do a great job because he had a winning record all through the minor leagues. All of a sudden, he gets the major league. He had been the worst manager I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
He aggravated so many players and stuff. So obviously, he's never coached ever since then. So then we went from him. Then we went to I'm drawing a blank to interim guy. Then it was Gabe Kapler. I'll come back. There was another guy who he's still with the organization. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Sure. Yeah, well, obviously, Charlie Manuel is one of the best guys to do it. Obviously, won a World Series for the Phillies when he was there in 2008. Do you think, obviously it's kind of hard to tell, but do you think Joe Girardi can get the team that he has now and kind of get them back to that Charlie Manuel level of, hey, we expect to win and be one of the top teams of baseball every year? And it sounds like you think he can.
Yeah, it's hard for a baseball manager to take a team all the way to the top. You still need players. It's just
Yeah.
you could be a great manager all you want. If you pull out a left bullpen arm, he's got a 9 ERA. There's only so much you can do. But yeah, Joe Girardi, like he's done it before. And he's actually in New York. He's handled the bullpen almost masterfully in New York and dealing with the media and stuff. So it should come natural for Joe Girardi. Charlie Manuel had his rough start when he first came to Philadelphia. He wasn't beloved when he first got here, but over the years, there's so much winning we did it. He earned the Philadelphia respect, and I think Girardi already has it. He'll even grow even more once he actually does win. But the only time will tell. Phillies still need players to get it done, though. It's a players' league, so.
Absolutely. So Bryce Harper, he's been there for a few years now with the Phillies. He's played pretty well, I feel, and obviously you're going to know more about how he's played than I would, but Bryce Harper for me always seems like a guy that he always is putting together pretty solid seasons, but I feel people think that he should be putting up just outworldly numbers. Which can he do? Yeah, obviously, one MVP is obviously very capable of doing, but that's tough to do every single year. I feel Bryce Harper has done a solid job since he's been with the Phillies. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know where we'd be when we didn't have Bryce Harper. I know everybody wants to put, oh, you pay him $300 million. He's got to hit 4 home runs every game and all that stuff. It's just not realistic. I mean,
No.
he hits 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. If that's not good enough for you, then you're not really realistic.
Right.
When he brings presence. He helps the other people in the lineup, and when he's up to bat, the other managers should want to know if they want to walk him or pace the other guy, who's getting the fastballs in front of him and stuff. So he brings that the presence to the lineup where you get to pitch around him or pitch to him. So it's and yeah, like you said, like everybody expects these huge numbers. If he's a solid 30 home runs, 100 RBI guy, hey, I'll take that every year.
Absolutely.
And what's really been good at Philadelphia, knock on wood, he's been healthy. But his 2 years he was here, he's been a little banged up than when he was in Washington. And last year, he pulled his back a little bit, but he played through it and showed his toughness, though. So I do love that his toughness and the willingness to not crash into walls anymore like he was when he was younger and stuff like that.
Right. And I guess talking about his defense, everyone always talks about the offense. Bryce Harper, how's he hitting? How's he hitting? How's he hitting? Bryce Harper is one of the more underrated defenders in baseball. Is he the best? No, he's not the best, but is he going to make the plays and is going to go all out for you? Absolutely. And that's one thing that I really love about Bryce Harper is that, he's not a one-dimensional player. What you expect from him on the offensive side of things, he can bring it on the defensive side of things too, and that's got to be huge.
Yeah, he's a hustler guy. He hustles for everything too. So, but he's gotten a little smarter than he used to crash into walls. Then you see him go chasing, foul balls into the stands and stuff like that. He knows he can't do that stuff anymore. His bat's more important, but he's a smarter player. He gets a little aggressive with his throws though, a little bit too much. But hey, I'll take the aggressiveness over some lackadaisical stuff that some players do too. So, yeah, he's a great base runner too. Aggressive base pass. So he may not be great at everything, but he's really good at most of the stuff around the baseball. So he's the least of our worries, And so we have so many other problems, and thank God we have, because I don't think we couldn't even beat the Marlins. We'd be last in the division if it wasn't for Bryce Harper, with no hope.
Yeah. So you brought in Dave Dombrowski this offseason to be the new president of baseball operations. Obviously, this guy has been around. He has had success with Detroit, success with Boston, won a World Series for Boston, and now did he have another stop in between Boston? Where was he after that? Or was
he first started with the Marlins and took them to the World Series?
That's right.
Yeah. Their first World Championship. Yep. He built the expansion team. Yep.
So how do you? I mean, obviously, it's it's tough to tell how you like him personally. He's only been here for a few months now, but knowing his reputation, were you pretty excited to hear that he was kind of going to be the top of the chart for Phillies now?
Oh, absolutely. When they fired Matt Klentak, well, reassigned him, so-called reassigned him, and then their names are flown out. I'm like, why is they not Dave Dombrowski? I guess now we found out that they tried to get him, but he was working on a expansion Nashville job, trying to bring Nashville baseball to Major League Baseball. Well, I guess after a couple of months, that fell through, and then they called him again, and he accepted a job. I couldn't be more excited. Just like when we went from Gabe Kappa, Joe Girardi, we went from a rookie manager to an established manager. Now we went from a rookie GM to an established general manager who's been there, done it. And I think that's what the Philadelphia Phillies needed. They didn't need some second guessing guys. They knew somebody that knows the league, has tons of resources, and knows how to make a winner. And that's what the Phillies needed. They needed less new school, more old school, and start blending that stuff together. With the analytics and all that stuff. They went too analytic heavy the last 5 years. Now they went with a baseball guy that knows analytics, but knows how to scout and bring in ball players and knows how to build a winning baseball team.
Absolutely. And analytics are huge. And that's something, I'm glad you mentioned it, that this day and age has become a big part of baseball. I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays got to the World Series, kind of mainly based off of analytics. Now, at the end of the day, that's kind of probably what screwed them out of a World Series.
Yeah.
But, that is what got them there. But Dave Dombrowski, like you mentioned, brings a perfect mix of, analytics can get you to a certain point, but you also have to trust your baseball instincts and your knowledge. And I think that's exactly the perfect thing that the Phillies need. And Dombrowski is one of the best GMs. I mean, I wouldn't say not only in baseball, but in sports. I mean, he just knows how to win. Just some people know how to win and some people don't. And he knows how to win. He's done it many times.
Yeah, and he's already he's going to be a future Hall of Fame general manager. So it's not even debated now. He can add to it if he takes the Phillies to a World Series or wins a World Series. And that was the problem the Phillies have had the last 5 years. They've been lacking in the analytic department, so they went so heavy that it screwed up their farm system that they can't develop they went too heavy analytic, which they missed on some blue chip talent over analytics, and they couldn't bring the analytic problem. They get so much in these guys' heads with analytics, they forgot how to play baseball. So now they had to back off of it and use analytics as a tool, not as the entire ball.
Exactly. No, I agree 1,000% on that for sure. So we'll kind of move into the offseason now for the Phillies. First off, we'll talk about the bullpen because they have addressed that for them. They've gotten a lot of guys. They brought in Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado, Sam Coonrod, Brandon Kintzler, and obviously younger pitchers like Connor Brogdon and JoJo Romero too. So from the names that they've brought in so far this offseason, do you think this is a bullpen that can turn it around? Obviously, is this the biggest names in the game? No, but these are guys that I think can be very successful. So how do you feel about these moves for the bullpen so far?
Well, I hold my breath every year with the bullpen because we brought in guys. We brought in Dave Robertson in the past, who had a great track record for the Yankees. He only pitched like 7 innings with he barely pitched for us. And then we have a young arm, Dominguez. He has Tommy John surgery, and he's only like in his 20s. So Archie Bradley was one of the top Arizona Diamondbacks prospects.
Yeah.
Didn't make it as a starting pitcher, so he just refer him to the bullpen. It looks like that's the role for him. I'm excited. He looks like he embraced Philadelphia too. He's trying to bring in JT Realmuto. He's doing little Twitter battles saying he wants to throw to him. So he looks like he's embracing the city and the passion of the city. So he's got that long beard there. I think he'll fit in pretty well as a character in the bullpen. And the Phillies website already has him as listed as the closer, so it's his job. So I mean, you don't have much out there to go against. Hector Neris is more of a setup guy. He's been closing for us over the years, but he's been hot or cold, for the past couple of years. So it's like Brandon Kintzler. He had 12 saves for the Marlins last year, and so there's a bunch of guys. You just collect the inventory, and hopefully that 2 or 3 of them may work out, and then plus it's a long season. You might need a lot of arms out there. So hopefully everybody fills in their roles. And I like one pickup they gave a non-roster invitee is Tony Watson from the San Francisco Giants. I thought he was a really good lefty specialist. I couldn't believe they got him such cheap though, but he might be a nice key weapon up there in the bullpen for us here, and we'll have to see how the spring battle out here.
And you said it, and I agree 100%, especially as a Rockies fan who obviously I'm only 23 years old, so I have not seen a lot of, Rockies, but one thing that you can never have too much of is pitching. Pitching. I would rather have a 58-man roster and 57 of them are pitchers, just because you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you get those late ins in Colorado, that thin air and that big outfield, man. Things get wild pretty fast out there. I remember a lot of Philly Rocky games that I stay up way late in the night. I remember watching the end of those games. So yeah.
Yeah, no lead is ever safe with the Rockies. That's for sure.
Yeah, you got to sweat those things out there. And plus, in Philadelphia, we have a bit of a bandbox here. A little pop-up goes for a home run here. So you need a lot of sinker ball pitchers and a lot of strikeout pitchers.
Absolutely. So go to the starting pitching now for the Phillies. This is a pitching rotation that I think has great potential to do really solid things. Aaron Nola is an absolute ace. Zach Wheeler obviously brought him in from the Mets, Zach Efline. And then you have pitchers like Spencer Howard, Vince Velasquez, and then you signed Matt Moore as well, too. So if you were to build, manager Benninger here, if you were to build the 1 to 5 rotation for the Phillies, how is it looking next year?
This is probably one of our, I wouldn't say a super strength, but it's definitely a strength of the team. And Dave Dombrowski said it on his first day of his press conference that we have 3 good pitchers. That's pretty good to work with in the Major League Baseball with Nolan Wheeler and Zach Eflin, who came back into his own now that he's starting to throw more sinker ball in the game now. And the other 2 spots is a little bit shaky, but hopefully between Matt Moore and they signed Chase Anderson and I hate to say this guy, Vince Velasquez. He's not a starter pitcher, but he seems to always find that rotation. And I would like to see Matt Moore get the shot because we need a lefty in our rotation. We haven't had a lefty in rotation in a couple of years. But we also got a couple other pitchers. Trying to think, Ranger Suarez played very well in spring training last year, but got the COVID, never got off the break, and never got a real good break last year. So watch his name up and maybe sneak into the rotation there too. So, but definitely Noel Wheeler, Eflin are number 1, 2, 3, barring no injuries. Look for that Matt Moore and possibly Chase Anderson taking the last 2 spots. We also have a top prospect, but I think he needs more development when Spencer Howard. They tried to push him a little bit too much last year. Got a little shoulder fatigue, and he needs more innings in the minor leagues. I think they are going to have some minor league baseball this year. So I think he needs some more development, but he's definitely going to be one of the rotations maybe towards the end of the year. So
absolutely. So move on to the non-pitchers, the other positional players here. First off, we'll get to Ralmuto in a second here. We first want to touch on Didi Gregorius, brought him back on a 2-year deal. This is a guy that plays pretty solid defense and can hit pretty well at times too. So are you a fan of Didi Gregorius? How did you feel when you brought him back?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it when they brought him in last year, and I used to always hear Yankee fans. He's below for the Yankee fans. Now watching him play every day, I can see why. He's just a true professional. He doesn't hit for a lot of average, but he gets a lot of big hits, and he's got a lot of pop in his bat. So, with that left-handed bat makes the bounces our lineup a lot. We can go right, left, all the way through the lineup. So it kind of makes our lineup really strong. I think they were playing a little peekaboo with all the other shortstops around this offseason, trying to get a little upgrade up on defense, but they just couldn't strike the money deal on some of them. Like Marcus Semien from Oakland. I think he went to Toronto.
Yep.
There was a couple other ones, and they brought him back for 2 more years. But I think they didn't want to go too long because they got a former first-round pick in the minor leagues, Bryson Stott. He should be in the major leagues either by next year or by the end of this year. So I think they're going to have Didi as the stopgap guy because he's getting a little up there in the age. But what a hell of a stopgap guy to have, a good locker room leader, and Joe Girardi loves him to death. So it's a win-win situation there. And it
Absolutely.
also put Gene Segura back to where he should be as a second baseman, being possible third base.
JT Realmuto, my opinion, is the best catcher in baseball, and I don't really even think it's close.
No.
It's he's one of those guys that catchers these days, you want them to play defense, and I think that's what you really want in a catcher, and he can do that. But what separates him so much further along than any other catcher is that not only can he hit, but he can hit for power. He hits for a good average for a catcher, and he can drive in runs. So was there ever a point before you obviously brought him back where you were nervous, like we might not bring back JT Realmuto? And how are you feeling through the whole process?
We were sweating this out of the offseason. The entire Philadelphia was on JT watch all offseason because it all sounds good now, but in the offseason, when we got to the offseason, it looked like the Phillies were going to strip this thing down. They were complaining that they didn't have enough money with all the COVID thing. It was doom and gloom. It looked like it was going to be a fire sale, and then I think with the COVID, and I think the market came back to the Philadelphia Phillies where JT Realmuto had to come back to a more reasonable offer, and we brought him back. And couldn't be more relief because we gave up a lot to get him.
Yeah,
I think other teams probably wouldn't want to spend that much money for a catcher, but we had no choice because we gave up one of our top prospects, Sixto Sanchez, to the Marlins,
right.
and now we're going to watch him probably beat us up over the next 5 years now. So at least we got to have a return on our investment. And if you're gonna make that trade, you have to pay up and expect to pay for a top best catcher in baseball. So I think it was a right fit, and he's also one of Bryce Harper's one of the best friends. So it kind of was a have him. Keep it all together.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think that's a guy that, like you mentioned, you invested a lot in him, and to some degree got rid of a little bit of your future. Now, obviously, it's hard to tell with prospects and some at times because sometimes they just suck when you think they're going to be great. And it's the ones that you get in the 30th, 40th round that tend to be just amazing for you. So you really never know. But, I will always say this for sports. I will always be willing to trade something for proven talent. If I have to trade prospects, trade draft picks, but I know the person that I'm getting has done whatever they're really good at the professional level, I will almost always do it. And same with JT Realmuto. I agree.
Yeah, it's very undervalued now in today's world of sports, and everybody wants that freshly new toy, but they forget how hard it is to be a professional athlete. The day in day out job and the nuances of just being a pro every day, and been there, done it. It kind of gets overrated. It gets undervalued, I should say. And everybody likes those nice hot prospects, but can they do it, and how long can they do it for? It's always the question. So it also comes down to economics too. People want younger, cheaper players. So I think we get involved in that stuff.
Absolutely. So I guess we can move on to the predictions.
One thing on JT Realmuto, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
One thing where people, even when they first acquired him, I didn't really realize how his behind the plate is. They always say he was the best catcher in play until you actually see that quick release he's got. It's hard to really run off. He snaps and throws, and you're like, "Whoa, he got him!" And then he's also a good athlete. He's a good first to third guy. He can steal bases, so he's a pretty much an all around athlete too. So that's one thing that people don't understand about Realmuto, how good of an athlete he is.
Exactly. A lot of people talk about his bat, and deservedly so. But I think, like you mentioned, a lot of the times what can get lost and kind of the hustle bustle about him is that he not only can he play great defense, but he can move. Catchers typically look like they're running in cement out there. He can run, and he's an athlete.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing because he beats out grounders all the time, and then that's why sometimes they got to put him at first base and use his athleticism out there. So
absolutely. So now, was there any other free agent signings or big trades or anything that happened that you wanted to bring up or touch on before we moved on to the predictions part here?
No, the Phillies were trying to stay on the old luxury tax threshold or whatever it's
Yeah.
doing right now, which I don't mind. It keeps keeps teams responsible. But they've been Dave Dombrowski and Sam Full, who is our new general manager. They've been filling the holes and trying to find little like bench players that we signed. We signed Brad Miller. It's like a left-handed bench player. We picked up Matt Joyce. Just small like bench players and fringe players that would help fill out the roster because you need depth to make it through the Major League Baseball season, especially if we go from 60 games to now may possibly 162 this year. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fatigue going on through this year. So it was just more depth moves all the way through the roster.
Absolutely. So predictions time. Everyone always loves it. 162 game season is so far what we're expecting to have. Obviously, things can change. So next year, NL East, I think the Mets are going to be very good. To be honest, I think the Phillies have a legit chance to be a solid team in that division. How do you think they're going to finish?
I think this division's got really competitive now that the Mets have a new owner. Well,
Right.
owner spend money, and they got one of the best players in baseball, Francisco Lindor. I think his I hate to say it because Mets are my rival. So, but that was probably one of the best moves I saw in the offseason because Francisco Lindor is going to be now a star in New York, and the rest of the world are going to see how great of a player he is and that infectious smile on his face. And that it's Mets are going to be really good. And they made some really smart moves, not signing Springer and not going after Trevor Bauer. So Mets are going to be tough out. The Atlanta Braves are always the Braves. They're always going to be top of the league. The Washington Nationals are a little bit, I think, we don't know if they're coming down from the World Series victory, and they got some older pitchers. It's going to be dependent on Strasburg and Scherzer if they can stay healthy. And the Marlins, I mean, they've been beating our tails in the last 2 years, so they're tough out for us. So I think the Phillies are in a little bit of a struggle in this division. I see a lot of teams bound, but I think they're going to be in the middle of the pack. We'll see how injuries and the Phillies' problem is they don't have a lot of young talent. They didn't really develop a lot of players, so they're dependent on a lot of older players, which typically break down. But it's going to come down to their organizational depth and obviously that bullpen. If they can get two or three of those guys to work out, I think they'll be in the thick of things here. But it's going to be a tough division. I think this year they're going to see what they got, and then next year they're pretty much going to take a shot at something. So.
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with that too. I think the Phillies, if the pitching can do what, I'm sure a lot of people hope it can do, I think that's going to be the deciding factor to see if the Phillies are in the playoffs. If the Phillies aren't in the playoffs, you're going to know why. It's because the pitching wasn't good. Yeah. But if the pitching is solid and can do what some people hope they should be able to do, maybe they're a wild card team. I don't know. May obviously outside looking in. I don't know much about them like you. You watch them every day here, but I think if the pitching hits, the hitting's fine. I'm not worried about the hitting. I think if the pitching is fine, I think they could potentially be a wild card team. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the mix as well. I mean, it's kind of hard to be out of the wild card mix until the end because there's so many mediocre teams, especially NL Central and stuff like that. So there's going to be I'm sure I'm not having really. They haven't announced it with the playoff format. I think they're going to go back to the old way, but there could be some negotiations going here. So hopefully, they expand the wild cards again. So, but this division is the Braves, and everybody's got to fall soon until somebody knocks off the Braves. I guess the one little wild card in this whole thing on our Phillies is one of our top prospect now is not a prospect, but Alec Bohm. If he can develop into what we think he can be, I think that could put us over the hump because that'd be a nice right hand power bat on that come through to us. That's one of our very key, very not very many young players that we developed throughout the minor league system, and hopefully he's the one. So we'll see how he makes out and that comes into a next level player for us.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely look out for him too. I always like doing these kind of podcasts because I get to learn more about players that I maybe don't know much about, and that's one guy I'll definitely look out for this next year too. So I'm really pumped for that. So yeah, I guess, and I'll get to other few questions here. But as
Yeah.
far as Phillies talk go, is there anything that you wanted to bring up or you wanted to highlight personally that maybe we didn't touch on?
Yeah, we have a center field battle now. We don't really have a true center fielder. We got Scott Kingery, who's been playing all over the field. He's been a little inconsistent. He's supposed to be a second baseman with his speed and athleticism. They're going to play him all over the field. He's going to battle out with another one of our high draft pick, Adam Hazley. It doesn't look like he's going to be a top prospect. It looks like a solid pro. Then we're bringing back as Dubal Herrera. I remember from a few years ago, he had domestic violence things, so they're trying to give him a chance to win this center field job part. But he's got a long way to go. He missed all last year, and plus with the domestic violence thing, it's a little tricky slope he's still going into. See if he can win back his teammates. So the center field job's going to be, and they have Roman Quinn, who can flat out fly, but can't hit for much though, and he always gets hurt. So there's a little bit of battle in center field here in spring training here to watch out for him.
Sure. So now this is my favorite part of the show because I get to learn more and people get to learn more about who you are about as fans go. So this is, it's kind of a get to know you kind of thing here. So who is your all-time favorite Phillies player and why?
Chase Utley.
Yeah.
He is Philadelphia. I think most fans will say that. He's a hard-nosed, no nonsense, blue collar player, and that's Philadelphia. If you want to look up definition of Philadelphia, Chase Utley is the guy. Even the former broadcast, longtime broadcaster Harry Callis, he used to say, "Chase Utley, you are the man," and it's no doubt about it. He's the man. A lot of Philly fans, and there's a lot of babies born as Chase in this area. He's definitely.
Well, especially his World Series heroics back-to-back years. I mean, especially in obviously he won it in 2008 and then 2009. I mean, he may have been better in the 2009 one. Obviously, they didn't end up winning it, but he was a fun player to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, he would have won World Series MVP if the Phillies would have pulled that one out. But Matsui got it, and just still pulling some wounds out for that one.
That's
I got to hear from the Yankee fans all the time. So
yeah, I'm sure that's got to be fun. So who is your all-time favorite non-Phillies player? Now they maybe could have played for the Phillies at one point, but had to spend the majority of their career somewhere else.
Oh, he's definitely a non-Philly, and you might have to Google him because some of the younger players probably never heard of him. His name was Eric Davis. He used to be a center fielder for the Cincinnati Reds. He missed 40-40. He would have been the first 40-40 player, but he missed it by 3 home runs. He had 80 steals and 37 home runs. The Phillies weren't very good back when I was growing up, so I caught a lot of Cincinnati Red games, and Eric Davis was one of those. Before Ken Griffey Jr. and all these high athletes, he was a 5-tool player, and he was my favorite player. And I loved playing center field when I was a youngster.
That's awesome.
I could actually move.
Back in the day, huh? Well, I've never been able to move. I've always been the big first baseman pitcher guy, so I never knew what that's like.
I'm converted first baseman now. That's all I can do.
It's awesome. Now, what is your favorite all-time Phillies moment? So it can be some regular season game in July that no one's going to remember besides you, or it can be a postseason moment. You probably have a few to choose from, so that may be a little difficult for you.
I'm going to go. I'll name my 3.
Okay.
One was against your team, NLC, and I think it was the NLCS. Where Ryan Howard said, "Get me to the plate," and I hate to bring that to you, but that was pretty special because Ryan Howard takes a lot of crap in this town, but he proved that, and he won that game back. We came back and beat you guys, and got back to we got to the Dodgers. So, and then the other one was Jimmy Rollins, and actually, Jimmy Rollins hit a double off of Jonathan Broxton in the 2000, I believe, is the 2009 one, to clear basic clear and double. And then the Matt Stairs home run against the Dodgers, that was one. But I say this with a tear in my eye. It was a 2000 when they won the World Series when Brad Lidge was on his knees. It doesn't get any better than that. I've waited all my life for that. I went to the parade. If every fan can experience that, it's the greatest sports feeling in the whole world. I can't take that away. So
Yeah.
that was definitely my number one fan. I know where I was. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
It was the greatest feeling of my sports life.
I'm going to be full disclosure here. I was rooting for the Rays in that World Series. Probably, maybe a little salty in there from the Phillies knocking us out, but
oh yeah, I hated the San Francisco Giants all those years, Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals. So I wasn't when they beat us out.
No, that was really cool. Especially with Callis, making the call too, for the Philly station, and that kind of being one of his final, big calls before obviously, passing away not too long ago. But
yeah, we live in the area that we probably listened to Harry Callis more than we listened to our father because
really,
2 games you listen to, he listened to him on the radio, and he was part of your life, your livelihood,
absolutely. Especially for me, sports broadcasting and announcing is something that I want to get into and that I want to do. And everyone, always talks about the Vin Scullys, the Kevin Harlans, Al Michaels, those guys, deservedly so. But I think one guy that definitely gets overlooked a lot as far as that is Harry Callis. I mean, he called amazing games, and he was obviously I never listened to him when I was younger as a fan of being in Colorado, but watching YouTube videos and stuff of him now, I mean, he was really, really, really amazing to listen to for sure.
He also was a voice of the NFL films. If you watch some of the old NFL films, when he did a lot of work for them. So his son actually is one of that. I think he's still the Tampa Bay Rays play-by-play announcer, Todd Callis. So
okay, gotcha.
He's got golden pipes too, man. He's great to listen to. So.
Now, favorite non-Phillies moment. Now, this one, when I ask people, is the one that stumps them because they're never thinking, oh, well, outside of my team. But do you have a non-Phillies moment that you think of, and you're just like, man, that was really cool. I'm glad I got to see that. It's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I guess maybe like Ken Griffey Jr. hitting the All-Star Game home run derby in Baltimore when he's hitting off that warehouse. I think he really I thought he was going to be the next one to bring younger fans into the game. That infectious smile. I always had an admiration of Ken Griffey Jr. Fortunately, his injuries caught up to him, but could have been like just the poster boy of Major League Baseball.
Absolutely. No, I agree. For sure. And then last question here. It's not baseball, but what are the Jets doing with the number 2 pick?
Oh, let's just trade our one quarterback and bring another quarterback in here. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like they're shuffling quarterbacks out here. I don't know. I think what they should do is just keep on beefing those offensive line and keep Sam Darnold up. That's what I think they should do.
Yeah, I agree. Penei Sewell is going to be a great player, and I think put him with Mekhi Becton. Sam Darnold's never getting touched. He is never getting touched.
Yeah. Then he can sit back and pick them apart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's the end of the show, Brian. Thank you for coming on. I had a great time and love, obviously we haven't talked sports in a while since we did the Fielder's Choice podcast, 4 for 4, all those ones back in the day, but it was really good and fun to do that with you again for sure.
Yeah, it's like we never missed a beat, we kept turn it on and just talk baseball, man.
Got that chemistry going.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you want to put your stuff out there, if not, totally don't. I don't blame you at all. As far as like Twitter and stuff, if people want to find you and talk Philly sports with you, that's another thing I was wondering too. And I don't know why I just thought about this, but so you're a Jets fan, but not an Eagles fan. Where did that come from? Are you initially from that area, or how does that work out?
No, my family are all Eagle fans, and I am an Eagle fan and a Jet fan, so I'm kind of my AFC NFC alliances there. I grew up with a bunch of Jet fans, so I used to go to Jet games when I was younger, and my family are all Eagle fans. And at one time, I was actually a season ticket holder for both the Eagles and the Jets. So
wow.
Yeah. And to make a long story short, there was a little bit. I kind of walked away from the Eagles over to the Michael Vick situation. So that was I kind of one of those personal choices I made. So then he became a Jet, so I had to go back and forth.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm all Philadelphia, but I have Jets are my adopted team. So
sure.
The last couple of years there wasn't much to watch. It's painful to watch the Jets the last couple of years.
Well, as a Dolphins fan, I'm hoping we kind of turn that around. Just barely missed the playoffs last year, so I'm hoping this next year we can make the leap.
You guys are now the new model. You know that. Strip it down and rebuild it. How quick you turn that thing around.
That's right. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, folks, if you're wondering, this is the Philadelphia Phillies podcast and the NFL podcast with Bryan Benninger too now.
2.0 now.
But no, that's one of those things where it was, I expected us to be better than 2 years ago now, but I did not expect us to come within a game of making the playoffs. So that definitely says a lot about our team, and I'm hoping we can build on it next year.
And you might have a little Deshaun Watson now coming up here in a couple months here when they want to apply him loose.
We might, man. This is one thing that I've been saying from day one is I love Tua. I'm committed to Tua, and I want Tua to do well. But having said that, there's rare times that NFL quarterbacks that are in their prime at the age of 25 leave their team. It never happens. So I would be stupid to not want Deshaun Watson too. So win-win either way, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my bosses at work is a Dolphin fan. He doesn't want Watson. He wants to keep Tua. So I'm like,
okay.
But Watson's he says he's kind of sweet,
Yeah. I like some Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, anyways, Bryan, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you had a great time, and I definitely want to have you on in the future. Maybe talk some football, something more. Or something like that. I'd love to have you on for sure.
Anytime. We'll just turn on. We'll talk sports. And we can be here, just like the old times,
Absolutely. Bring on Rio. Bring on some other guys. Get the 4for4 Fielder's Choice podcast going again.
Yeah, we got to get Rio going here. We got to get Rio back on here.
That's right. Rio, if you're listening to this, that's your warning. Bryan and I are coming for you.
Yep, we need some Tiger talk now.
That's right. All righty, folks. Well, if you want to follow the podcast anywhere, obviously you can find us on YouTube, find us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want to follow us, definitely do that. Again, Bryan, thank you for coming on. It was a great time. But anyways, as for Bryan and I, thank you for listening to episode 51 of the podcast. And until next time, we are out.